The first thing I tell her, the first words that I utter to her in Tree, her initial response is, "We're going to Ghana. We're going. Like, let's go."
We are going to Africa. We going.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Passion Over Fear. I'm your host, Jordan Curcio, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the quote that changed my life. And this quote comes from the famous Nelson Mandela. He says, "If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his own language, that goes to his heart." And the first few examples that I saw of this were in two YouTubers. One goes by the name of Shauma, and he goes around like markets in New York and like surprises these people. And Lao Shu, someone else from somewhere in the US that would go around speaking like 40 plus different languages. He was incredible. So seeing this quote and then watching these people's reactions, the way they would be amazed just by these people speaking like a few words in the languages. Man, that to me, that was just like so inspiring. And I was like, man, I want to do that. Like, I'm born and raised in New York, so I've always been around the diversity, the different cultures. And so I never realized it, but I guess I was always into this at some level. At first, this quote inspired me to make a documentary film, learning as much Portuguese as I could in 2 weeks, and going to Newark, New Jersey, a place where I knew there was a high population of Brazilians and Portuguese speakers. So I went there, and that entire process was amazing. Brought me in touch with a beautiful culture of Brazil, a culture that I'm learning more about every day, and yeah, and a place in the world I haven't yet been to at the time of this recording, but I'm hoping that that will change really soon and that I'll be there within this next year or so. Just having that experience in that documentary, I had only learned as much as I could in 2 weeks, and I walked into random stores recording myself speaking to people, so nervous, stuttering like crazy, looking like, in my mind, I'm like, man, I look like an idiot. But then to see those people's reactions, regardless of whether or not I spoke well, I probably didn't. I most likely didn't. But the first thing they would say to me is like, congratulations, like, you sound amazing, you speak so well. They just kept saying congratulations, and like, you could see the video on YouTube for yourself. Just their reaction was so genuine. And so after that experience and knowing how much of a profound impact it had on people, I've tried to just do that with every person that I meet, every friend that I have from another culture. If they speak another language, I do my best to at least just learn a couple of words in that language. And I'll give you an example. So there's someone that helps care for my grandma, and she's from Ghana. And when I first found that out, I was like, oh, I gotta learn some words in Twi. Twi is their language. And I got a little clip of this. I'll share it. It's her reaction to when I spoke to her in Twi, which is her native language. And the first thing I tell her, the first words that I utter to her in Twi, her initial response is, "We're going to Ghana. We're going. Like, let's go."
Mesmo watching. Oh, the doctor with you so. Did they tell you? Oh, who is teaching you all that? Oh my goodness. What's that? Now what's that? Whoa! I like that. We are going to Africa. We going. My son is always telling me we're going, and then I end up going without him, and he got so mad.
To me, that's so profound because that shows you the lesson of what learning a language does. What learning a language does, speaking the language to that native person, it takes that person directly to home, to their home, what that means for them. And this is a concept that us as Americans, it's kind of hard for us to fathom because maybe we're not used to traveling to other places, and American culture is just so global that it's hard to imagine going to a place in the world where no one knows anything about America and no one knows anything about that culture. But for most immigrants here in the US, that's the reality for them. Like, they come into the US, and unless they live in a very big city that's diverse like New York, maybe that culture that they're used to seeing, though, whatever types of food they're eating, whatever, the language that they were speaking, that may be gone. It may be very hard to find anyone that even knows about that or that they could really connect with. So when they come here, they're really sacrificing a lot. And for them, many times that can feel lonelier, that can feel very challenging. So for us, it's hard to fathom that. But imagine you moved somewhere. Again, this is probably hard to imagine, but somewhere where no one knows any word of English, no one knows anything about American culture, and you're kind of forced to say goodbye to everything that you've known as you're living in this place. If you were doing that for years and then out of nowhere someone comes up to you in English like saying, "Hey, what's up?" You'd be like in shock. You'd be like falling down in amazement. That's what learning a language does. That's what you, as an American, taking time out of your day to learn even just a few words in someone's native language, that's what that does. It transports them directly back to that feeling of home for them. It's hard to put into words, but it's like, man, it hits them deep in their heart, or it allows them to just open up and smile and be happy. And for me, that's everything, man. For me, that's where you, as a language learner, become a beacon for other people. You bring people together, because people that normally wouldn't open up, by just speaking a few words in their language, all of a sudden they're like, wow, you see me for who I am. You see me for where I come from, and you respect that. And all of a sudden, that person that may feel anxious and shy, maybe they have an accent in English, maybe they're insecure about their culture because they feel they may be made fun of, all of a sudden, you've just maybe not eliminated it entirely, but you've just allowed that person to open up and feel safer. And as soon as that happens, it's like you're connecting. Now the door's open for you to learn more about their culture, to learn more about where they come from, and just make these connections with all different types of people. And for me, I love that. There's nothing better than that. And my third and final point about learning a new language is that it humbles you. It humbles you because, especially as an American, we're so used to living in a culture where everyone has to learn our language. Everyone has to come into the US and learn English. Or wherever we go in the world, since English is such an international language at this point, everyone you see, I mean, not everyone, but pretty much every country you go to, you can at least find someone that speaks English. And there are certain countries now that learning English has become such a priority that now most people just speak it in those countries as a second language. But when you put yourself in a situation where you're forced to speak in another language, you realize like certain things that we have that we take for granted, like the ease of just like being able to communicate and express whatever it is that you want to express without having any problems. The struggle of like trying to convey something or communicate something to someone, and you can't find the words, it's difficult. And feeling socially awkward because you don't know how to express yourself, like you putting yourself in those shoes will then allow you to understand all the other people that have to do the same thing with English. And then I respect them so much more. Forget about if they learn English and they have an accent. Like the difficulty for me to even just like get to a level where I'm conversational in another language, like the type of work and effort that gets put in for that. Like, that's not something you're going to understand unless you take the time to learn a language yourself and put yourself in the shoes of that person. So that's just a little bit about the quote that changed my life and what inspired me to start learning languages. To everyone, anyone listening, I highly recommend that you start learning a language, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what language it is, whatever one you have the most interest in, or just hear. Maybe you have a friend that speaks that language, or a neighbor, someone. Just give it a try. You don't even have to take it that serious or go crazy. Like, just learn a couple of words or a couple of conversational phrases and go try and speak it to that person, and watch their reaction, and you'll see for yourself how cool it is. So that's it for me. I'll probably be making more content talking about languages, language learning in the future. If you want anything related to that, any questions you have, any tips and guides from me as a language learner, how I'm learning, things like that, feel free to let me know in the comments or send me a message, Instagram. With that said, look forward to sharing many more episodes on this in the future, and thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you all on the next one. Peace.